1900 World's Fair in Paris, attendees were fascinated by the work of W.E.B. Du Bois and other anthropologists who captured the success and style of upwardly mobile Black Americans to combat negative stereotypes in American propaganda. During this period, thoroughfares like Auburn Avenue in Atlanta and Beale Street in Memphis were the perfect opportunities to stroll and peacock in your best outfit. Down in New Orleans, the best-dressed young men were referred to as sports. The NOLA jazz musician Jelly Roll Morton had diamond fillings in his teeth. For the northern Black people, the avenues of Harlem and Chicago stroll at State Street between 26th and 39th were the places to be seen. Think about it. Most of your life is spent working. And if you're a Black person in this era, you're probably working in a uniform. When Black people weren't in uniforms, which clearly showed their class, they wanted to showcase their personalities and be free from labor, even if temporarily. Said one maid named Alice Adams, quoted by Blaine Roberts, "When I went out, I wanted to look different." Looking different wasn't always applauded. While race was still an obstacle, wealthy and middle-class Black Americans were increasingly beholden to classism and wished to separate themselves from their lower-class counterparts and their gaudy clothing. Fashion commerce allowed them to do that. Department stores, plus commercial avenues like magazines and mail-order catalogs, had been steadily gaining popularity since the late 19th century for white clients. Black media fashion pages like What They Are Wearing and Half Century magazine beginning in 1916, and church and school fashion shows popped up around the country, which not only doubled as charity and networking events that demonstrated to elite Blacks how to dress, but set out to redefine Black beauty in a racist world. A key style pariah for the Black professional class during this period was the first Black heavyweight champion boxer, Jack Johnson, whose victories in the ring were overshadowed by a politically motivated conviction under the Mann Act, his abusive marriages to white women, and his luxurious lifestyle, complete with furs and flamboyant tailored clothing. He also rocked a grill. Remarked Booker T. Washington, "It is unfortunate that a man with money should use it in a way to injure his own people." Now, why does this sound so familiar? As the Black middle and upper classes became more defined, certain clothing items were frowned upon because they were too close to being stereotypical. At the beginning of the Great Migration in 1914, the Chicago Defender said the N-word was rightfully used on the handkerchief heads that are coming to this city from many of the southwestern states, complaining about their behavior, mannerisms, and the fact that on Sundays, these same people look like fashion plates. For the next few decades, the paper would admonish Southern Black transplants for their food, style, and behavior, with the whites describing the Defender's 1931 dislike of Blacks sitting around the front stoop half naked and wearing much soiled silk and satin waists or dresses or bright colors more appropriate for evening wear than daylight. Speaking of silk, at Shaw University in the 1920s, future activist Ella Baker participated in a larger protest against strict campus policies, including a ban on fancy colored silk stockings, successfully getting the rule overturned. The new party and public recreation scene of the 1920s meant more styles. Described Elena Romero on Fashionable Youth in the Roaring Twenties. Climbing out of roadsters or doing the Charleston with his girl at a party, the young hep cat of the 20s wore huge flapping pants, called Oxford baggies, which appeared in 1925, and knickers, also called +4s. Stylish young Black women wore drop waist and flapper dresses, furs, pearls, and lace. Skimpy outfits at juke joints and rent parties would be the source of disdain for some respectable Black folk. The dandy influenced the pimp, and his style melded with jazz musicians and blues performers, churning out tailored suits, monochromatic looks, sharp hats, and leather two-tone shoes. For queer people headed into big cities, anonymity sometimes meant dressing how they pleased, like the blues performer Gladys Bentley, who embodied the dandy style. We know Southerners came up north with their best outfits. In this 1922 photo of Southerners arriving in Chicago, note the neat hemlines, how everybody wore a hat. One woman wears a necklace. One woman looks to be holding a bag and possibly wears something on her finger. Plus, at least 4 of them clutch spare coats. Said a white Mississippi resident, "Colored people are very fond of fixie clothes, and seldom do we find one who has not at least one dress-up outfit." You don't say. The availability of clothing and other fashion commerce in the North was obviously a delight for more than a few Southern transplants. A study by Paul Edwards of the buying habits of Nashville, Birmingham, Atlanta, and Richmond black people between 1929 and 1930, the beginning of the Great Depression, found that black families of both the professional and working class tended to buy their clothes from better types of stores than most white people and spent the same money as their socioeconomic peers. Keep in mind that they often weren't allowed to try on clothes or otherwise faced hostilities in these stores they were shopping in. For professionals who wanted to offset negative stereotypes, fashion was a part of the larger New Negro movement based in Harlem, especially for women. The best outfit displays were at elite and exclusive parties on the campuses of historically black colleges and universities, where students were expected to wear their Sunday best, at churches, with Easter Sunday being the showcase of the year, and of course, weddings. The importance of black style was also exhibited in funerals for all black Americans, which for the enslaved had been an important yet spiritually relieving end to a lifetime of tyranny, pain, and labor. In line with Christian beliefs, how would one meet their maker before their eternal paradise? The importance of looking good in death would transcend slavery, and it's no wonder black Americans are much more likely than other groups to have open casket funerals. Preparing the body and dressing it with care in a favorite or even new pre-selected outfit led to the slang term casket sharp. And by the way, shout out to Aretha Franklin's ruby red 5-inch Christian Louboutins. Girl, you did that. This famous picture of a group of black boys on Easter Sunday in Chicago 1941 is one of my favorites. I love the way that this boy styled his collar outside of his jacket with a pocket square that went well with his wire-rimmed glasses. Plus, we can't forget, look at these cuffs. Look at these cuffs! Just a century earlier, the fanciness of these clothes would have been off limits to boys their age. This period was also interesting because of the new phenomenon of black designers. In 1939, North Carolina-born Beverly Hills-based Mildred Blount was making hats exclusively for celebrities and productions like Gone with the Wind. In Philadelphia in 1940, May Reeves used a $500 loan from a black-owned bank to open a shop that attracted trendsetters like Ella Fitzgerald and Eartha Kitt. She also allowed her store to be used as a polling station during elections to encourage voting. Ann Lowe, who was born in 1898 and learned seamstressing from her mom Janine and her formerly enslaved grandmother Georgia Tompkins, was the only black student at St. Taylor School of Design in 1917. She was forced to learn in separate classes. After graduating, she worked in Tampa for a while before returning to New York after 1928. Eventually opening the first black retail shop on Madison Avenue in the 40s. She racked up a prominent clientele, eventually designing Jackie Bouvet's wedding dress for her marriage to JFK in 1953.
Now, Anne, how about the title of this article, Society's Best Kept Secret? Why was it kept such a secret that you were around?
So many of the women, society women, allowed their daughters to come to my shop and feel safe. As Mrs. Dillon, Undersecretary of State's wife, said I should never change my shop. Keep it that way always. She had two daughters that came always to my shop.
Zelda Wynn Valdes established her own dressmaking business in White Plains, New York in 1935, attracting celebrity clients like Josephine Baker, Eartha Kitt, Dorothy Dandridge, Mae West, and Ella Fitzgerald. Her most recurring muse, though, was the sex symbol and performer Joyce Bryant, who told Jill Byers in 2001, Zelda's gowns were very tight. I mean, they really left nothing to the imagination. If I had a pimple, you'd see it. By the 50s, when Zelda was co-founder of the Black National Association of Fashion and Accessory Designers, her dresses cost nearly $1,000 each. Depending on the source, Zelda was involved with the creation of the Playboy bunny costume, worn by waitresses at the popular members-only clubs, though this is disputed. These designers, with their own flourishing brands and shops, had come a long way from Elizabeth Heckley, but they were paving the way for more mid-century designers like Wesley Tan and Arthur McGee.
To make a brown gown with a top, hip slip and a lace waist in the shop is safe to see my Sunday man.
I've got a Zoot suit with the re-complete with the drapery and stuff. Come to look sharp enough to see my Sunday gown.
The origin origin of the popular and usually bright-colored Zoot suit is disputed, though by the 30s it was a hallmark of Harlem, jazz, and black men, and later, after spreading through the working class, it was an outfit worn by Mexican men in California. In 1943, in Los Angeles, mobs of white men attacked mostly Mexican and some black men wearing Zoot suits in a race riot. The 1950s were a period of conventional yet snazzy dressing in line with national trends, from swing dresses to poodle skirts. Down in Rutherfordton, North Carolina, my great-grandmother Aretha spent her weekends dragging my Nana along to different stores in Charlotte and Durham to find the perfect color-coordinated outfits for church. In the 40s and 50s, college campuses became slightly more permissive of black women's fashion choices, giving in to their love of color, florals, and drama, but with dress codes still in place. After all, post-World War II consumption was seen as a ticket to obtaining the American dream, and pageants and fashion shows abounded. Women like Pearl Bailey showcased proper glam, while the pages of Ebony magazine provided the details for lower and middle-class black Americans to aspire to. In the thriving jazz and bebop music scene, the fashion styling of artists like Miles Davis, Thelonious Monk, Dizzy Gillespie, and Duke Ellington were highly influential too. In 1956, the wife of the dean of Dillard University, Jessie Dent, asked John H. Johnson to supply models for a charity fashion show. Instead, Johnson provided clothes. 2 years later, Johnson's wife Eunice began a traveling fashion show called the Ebony Fashion Fair for charity in 10 cities with 4 models. Ebony reported in 2007 that a model from the 60s recalled encounters with rednecks, the KKK, and how the bus driver packed a rifle to protect us as the troop traveled through the South. Though many designers initially refused to sell clothing to Eunice, the Ebony Fashion Show would grow and continue until 2009, raising over $55 million for charities. In turn, it helped nurture the careers of black photographers, models, local businesses, and designers like Tracy Reese and Kevin Hall. Eunice later created Ebony Fashion Fair Cosmetics in 1973. For much of the early civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s, organizers insisted on wearing their Sunday best to protest, which served the purpose of making the images of racist violence more visceral. Dogs, hoses, and police were attacking people in good, clean clothes, not unkempt vagrants. This decision to lean into respectability politics would later be ditched by the mid-60s, beginning with young black women. Tanisha C. Ford tracked in Liberated Threads, Black Women, Style, and the Global Politics of Soul, that activists went from nylon stockings, cardigan sweaters, skirts and dresses, pearl necklaces, and modestly heeled pumps to jeans, denim skirts, bib and brace overalls, and natural hair. Many of these black women, who were college educated and from middle-class families in the North, found themselves questioning the ways they had been reared to embody black womanhood when they reached the South. It was hot. Locals looked at them with mistrust in their uppity outfits. Dressing like the sharecrops they wished to register to vote became common, and many found the experience liberating. During the 1963 March on Washington, a significant number of black female activists wore denim jeans and overalls, which Johnson Publishing Company didn't publish photos of. Ebony magazine's reluctance to publish a certain sort of black beauty was in mind when Kwame Braithwaite organized a fashion show in 1962 highlighting African-inspired fashion and natural hair, giving birth to the Black is Beautiful movement. In 1967, Nina Simone's High Priestess of Soul was influential, melding with a rise in Pan-Africanism and black leaders in kente cloth and dashikis. The kente cloth had been given widespread recognition in 1958 when the first president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, wore it often. Concurrently, the Motown style was extremely popular in the 60s, exemplified by artists like Marvin Gaye, the Four Tops, and the Supremes, who set the tone not just for black women who enjoyed sartorial drama, but for future girl groups as well. Plenty of white people were still uncomfortable with glamorous black women. Though Diahann Carroll had a starring role as a model in the 1962 Broadway show No Strings, reported the Washington Post in 2017, Carroll was not invited to attend the cast party because the party's hostess was comfortable with her children encountering African Americans as servants, but not as glamorous fur-wearing starlets. I know that lady was shitting herself when she saw Diahann Carroll star in Dynasty the next decade. Motown artists, the Jackson 5, were also no doubt influential for children and teen boys, especially Michael. College enrollment of black people grew from 434,000 in 1968 to 727,000 in 1972, when black nationalism, Black is Beautiful, and anti-Vietnam War sentiment converged into what Ford described as soul style. The leather jackets, afros, and casual cool of the Black Panther Party unintentionally became a part of its cultural legacy. Because the allure of the activist aesthetic was potent for plenty of college students and imitators, this meant that people could appear to be a Black Panther or otherwise radical without engaging the politics or committing to praxis, making the group look bigger and more powerful than it was. Afrocentric clothing, soul style, and the Black Panther aesthetic would be exploited by the fashion industry by the early 70s, when the fashions of dandies, sporting men, and pimps would become a key look of soul, funk, and disco. Of course, the best outfits were on display on Soul Train. Also, I have to shout out Stevie Wonder because his style was a major part of this era. Black women, who had began sporting short skirts in the 60s, had their choice between skimpy and conservative outfits in the 70s, shown on beauties like Chaka Khan, Diana Ross, Pam Grier, Aretha Franklin, and the Queen of Disco, Donna Summer. As music tastes changed, coinciding with a return to conservatism in the Reagan years, so did the looks. It was a period of credit, malls, Cosby Show fashion, Kangol hats, b-boys and b-girls, athletic wear, gold chains, and the dawn of Air Jordans, which were birthed in Michael Jordan's defiance of NBA rules. On the topic of gold, though, it was associated with not just wealth, but taking back our African roots, leading to an association of gold with ghetto, at least to that bitch Carrie Bradshaw.
You wear gold jewelry?
Yeah, like ghetto gold for fun, but this is my engagement ring.
Up in Detroit, a certain style of Cartier sunglasses, or buffs, gained popularity among Black factory workers with extra income in the 70s and drug dealers in the 80s. In 1983, the North Carolina-raised Andre Leon Talley became the first Black fashion news director at Vogue, and eventually the first Black creative director and editor at large.
My job is to make sure that Vogue has the first entree into every door of every important house. See it before anybody else, know what's going on, photograph it, send it to New York for Anna Wintour's approval.
With his important role in the growing world of high fashion, Talley helped push for more Black models. Known for his flamboyant capes, caftans, and robes, his grandmother Benny Frances Davis and her fabulous Sunday church hats had influenced his love of luxury and fashion. Another young man whose love for fashion was nurtured by his grandmother was Willie Donnell Smith. A Philly-born designer who dropped out of Parsons the New School for Design, he launched Willie Wear, a street couture brand, in 1976. He said 2 years later, "My mother and grandmother were always ladies of style, and still are. I guess they taught me that you didn't have to be rich to look good. I believe that good clothes don't have to be expensive." Willie Wear made over $25 million in 10 years, making it the largest Black-owned fashion house at the time. Tragically, he died 2 years later of HIV/AIDS complications, leading to the end of the brand. Couture designer Patrick Kelly also came to prominence in the 80s in Paris. He was noted for using racist imagery in his designs to reclaim them, eventually becoming the first Black or American designer to be admitted to the French ready-to-wear governing body. He died of AIDS in 1990. He and Willie's deaths remind us of how many talented artists were robbed from us because of the slow-moving actions of the Reagan administration. In 1982, 38-year-old Harlem native Daniel Ray opened a store at 125th Street using funds from gambling and boosted clothing he sold from his trunk. Dapper Dan didn't set out to be a designer, but racism in the wholesale industry led to him designing his own furs and luxury clothing. Because he couldn't sew, he directed a team of tailors described as Africans, family members, and a friend from the Nation of Islam. By 1985, he was designing garments featuring designer logos, attracting a clientele affiliated with the ongoing crack trade and growing hip-hop scene. He'd say, "Drugs were and are a curse on places like Harlem, but they created an economy that allowed my business to thrive. The street guys wanted to look good. I was juggling the polarity of Malcolm X and a big-time hustler like Joe Jackson. Being a former street guy myself, I understood what was going on around me. I was in it, but not of it." Word of mouth and Polaroid photos of his design circulating the drug trade to Philly, Detroit, and LA attracted visitors at all hours of the day, meaning Dan was often open 24/7. He divulged in 2019, "I saw the relationship between fur, diamonds, and fashion symbols. Black people on the rise wanted furs and diamonds. Then when I saw people's attachment to fashion symbols, I said, said, wow, this is just as important to them as the diamonds and the furs. So let me find an angle that I can build on. If they feel that good from a little Louis Vuitton pouch, imagine what they'd feel if I made them look like luggage. Dan's first hip-hop client of note was the stylish LL Cool J in 1985, leading to a slew of celebrity fans. 3 years later, when Mike Tyson got into a fight with Mitch Green outside of Dapper Dan's boutique, coverage in the New York Times brought international attention. The Manhattan phone directory lists the location as a business called Dapper Dan, which Tyson described as an all-night clothing store that caters to performers. Tyson said he had gone there to pick up an $850 garment. He showed off that item, a white leather jacket with gold and black trim and the words "Don't believe the hype" on the back of it at the news conference. Fendi successfully sued Dan for copyright infringement in 1992, leading to him closing his store and going underground. But his creations would be highly influential in the long run. Dan was less mad at the design world than he was with the middle class, saying in 2019, "Middle class blacks didn't buy, they snubbed me." Indeed, Buppies, or the black middle class, wanted established white-owned name brands like Calvin Klein and Donna Karan. Added Dapper Dan, "I remember we had the biggest block party in the city. Everybody from everywhere came. And I was walking by and heard someone on the microphone say, 'Dapper Dan' with that fake Gucci, like I was a laughingstock. It was humiliating. A lot of people didn't understand what I was doing. But today, they get it." In the modern era, Dan's use of repurposed fabrics and logos for unique pieces of fashion that made indelible marks on hip-hop has been compared to the use of sampling within the genre itself. In 1991, for Chanel, Karl Lagerfeld dropped what would be referred to as the hip-hop collection, showing how influential the style was. A number of trends would crop up thanks to hip-hop, from Run DMC's multi-million-dollar endorsement of Adidas and NWA's khaki and gang-influenced fashions in the 80s to For Us, By Us, and Lil' Kim in the 90s. In 1990, Carl Jones and TJ Walker started Cross Colors, a fashion line seen on everyone from the backwards outfit-wearing rappers Criss Cross to Mary J. Blige, Heavy D, and Arsenio Hall. Known for its red, black, green, and yellow garments and positive messaging, the company was shipping $15 million in merchandise by 1992. Though it would fade into the background due to a change in design and frequent counterfeiting, it was responsible for boosting the career of Karl Kani, who started his own company known for its popular baggy jeans. This era was also seeing the proliferation of platinum bling over gold during the late 90s to the early 2000s. And speaking of, grills were popular from the 1980s onward, but reached new heights thanks to artists in Memphis, Texas, NOLA, and St. Louis, like the Band-Aid wearing Nelly, whose 2006 song Grills was a best-selling ode. Though if you remember, Jelly Roll Morton had them things in his teeth way back when. Black women who wanted to be taken seriously in hip-hop in the 80s and early 90s, like Roxanne Shante, MC Lyte, Salt and Peppa, and TLC, wore baggy and androgynous clothing, intentionally or unintentionally preventing themselves from being stereotyped, in turn making the tomboy look fashionable for average black women. But these outfits were often paired with exaggerated displays of femininity. Think makeup, massive bamboo earrings, bra tops with baggy pants, and long acrylic nails, which had been popularized through the years by Danielle Luna, Donna Summer, Millie Jackson, Florence Joyner, and SWV's Cheryl Coco Gamble. Long nails are also essential to the hoochie mama aesthetic that pervades club and party photography beginning in the late 80s, early 90s. This blend of fashions, tight clothes, big jewelry, pristine and colored hair, long nails, was seen as ghetto. Dana Owens, aka the rapper Queen Latifah, was initially Afrocentric when debuting at the end of the 80s, but became sportier and sexier by the mid-90s, challenging expectations about what women her size should wear. The outfits of Khadijah, Maxine, Sinclair, and Regine on her TV show Living Single were also influential. Because black people had more of their own movies and TV shows, there were more black costume designers and inspirations. The Fresh Prince influenced shoe culture, Steve Harvey's brightly colored suits became as recognizable as his teeth, the fictional character Lisa Landry built her way to success in the popular sitcom Sister Sister, while Tia and Tamara's style evolution showed the way 90s fashion drastically changed from the beginning of the era to the end of it. Over on Moesha, the titular character and Kim Parker also had cute outfits, thanks to television extra turned costume designer Yolanda Braddy. At the end of the 90s and the turn of the century, the bevy of black media meant more visible black style. The red carpets of award shows, movie premieres, and album debuts that had once been extremely white now featured a recurring cast of fashionable black celebrities in daring outfits and black designers like Carl Kane. As traced by Brie Melandro, who coined the term the Yeehaw Agenda in 2019, Western wear was also seen on artists like Cisco, Mary J. Blige, and Destiny's Child during this era. Speaking of Destiny's Child, Tina Knowles skillfully created the outfits for the girl group. Some people said they looked tacky, but said Tina in 2020, "The label had a meeting with my husband and they told him that basically I was the problem and I was going to be the reason why the girls would be limited in their crossover appeal because they were just a little too flashy, a little too Motown. But what they really meant was that they were a little too black. I was told they should look like Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera. They said they needed to wear jeans and t-shirts. I took offense to it because I felt like the girls, in their splendor, were different. They were unique. They were unapologetically black." Like a whole bunch of other once tacky black styles, Destiny's Child's outfits would be influential and iconic part of the Y2K era.